Most ATMs don't ignore compliance on purpose. They ignore it because they don't fully understand it. Or worse, they assume it doesn't really matter at their size. That's the assumption what shuts businesses down. Compliance is not something you worry about after you scale. It is something that determines whether you are allowed to operate at all. Today I'm going to explain why compliance isn't optional in the ATM business, what operators usually need to care about, and how non-compliance quietly destroys businesses long before anyone gets fined. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell, because if you're building an ATM business income, you need to understand the parts nobody talks about, and we do that here on this channel. This isn't legal advice, this is operator reality. Let's break it down. By the end of this video, you'll understand what compliance actually means in the ATM business, why small operators are more exposed, not less, and how real operators build compliance into systems instead of reacting to problems. Most people think compliance is a checklist you handle once. It's not. In the ATM business, compliance is a condition of operating. It touches how you register your business, how you route transactions, how you handle documentation, and how you report activity. Also, how you interact with banks and processors. If any one of those areas breaks, the business doesn't slowly decline, it stops. Accounts get frozen, processing gets shut down, banks exit relationships. That's not theory, that's how the business ends for the operator who treat compliance casually. Here are the backwards truths. Small operators are more exposed than even big operators. People assume if I'm small, nobody cares. In reality, smaller operators have a tougher time. They don't always know what's required. They rely on verbal guidance. They copy advice from forums. They use processors who don't fully protect them. Large operators build compliance into their operation from the first day. Small operators improvise, and improvisation is where mistakes happen, especially around registration, reporting, and transaction routing. There's no grace period when something is wrong. There is no warning letter that gives you 6 months to fix it. They just shut you down. Most people think the bigger risk of non-compliance is fines. It's not. The real cost is losing your banking relationship, frozen funds, processing termination, forced liquidation of machines. Once you are flagged, you become a risk profile, and banks don't want to deal with the risks. Processors don't want you either. They don't like that liability. And rebuilding trust in this industry takes a long time. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. That's why experienced operators are conservative. They would rather grow slowly than rebuild from zero. Real operators do not obsess over compliance. They systemize it. They use proper regulations from day one. They control routing and processing instead of outsourcing blindly. They keep clean organizational records. They work with partners who understand ATM operation. They audit themselves regularly. Compliance becomes boring, and boring is exactly what you want if your compliance feels confusing. It is usually because the business was built out of order. The biggest compliance mistakes I see is people outsourcing responsibility. They assume their processor handles everything. They assume their bank would tell them if something was wrong. They assume that because nothing has happened yet, everything is fine. Silence is not approval. Most shutdowns do not come along with warning calls. The warning was the rule itself. If you want to operate ATMs long term, compliance has to be built into foundation, not bolted on later. That is why we teach business as a system. Strategies first, structure second, machines last. If you're serious about building this correctly, start with education before you scale. Hardware over locations. This business is not passive. It is not casual. It is infrastructure, and any infrastructure alone works when you build it to last. If this sounds interesting to you and you want to stay in the ATM business, check us out in the next ATM Mastermind video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.